that I get asked most about is my teleprompter, and I'm going to talk about that today. So this is my office. This is where stuff happens, and this is my teleprompter right over here. So a couple things about this. Let's just look at what's going on here. This is a glide gear teleprompter. There's this Lilliput monitor here. I've made this foam, I don't know what you call it, but a cover that knocks out the light in there. Inside of there is an Insta360. So that's a webcam that's hidden inside of there. And then on the bottom here, you can see that there's a head. That head allows it to rotate, which is useful when it's getting set up. Below that, there's an arm that's extending that allows you to get to the right height. And then this is attached to a monitor arm on this mount here. So this is a standing desk. And when I raise the desk, the whole thing will go up with me. So it's set up to my height. So when I look into it, it will work. So let's talk a little bit about what normal videos look like. Normal videos, so here I'm using, this is my webcam here, and it's on this screen over here. So it does a decent job. You know, if I'm looking at this screen right here, that's fine. But I've got multiple monitors, and while this screen is fine, I find that I like to have a different screen to make me a little bit more productive. My use of the teleprompter is probably different from what you're thinking. I'm not using this for teleprompting per se, like I'm not reading stuff off of a script normally. I generally don't do that. So I'm generally winging it. I use my teleprompter for mainly three things. So one is if I'm doing a Zoom call with someone, I want to do that Zoom call looking into their face. And so I will put the Zoom call on the screen here, and then I'll put generally Emacs where I'm taking my notes right next to it so I can type my notes and be looking at them. So that's one is a Zoom call. The next one is if I'm doing live presenting. So I do a lot of live presentations. It's very hard to do that with one screen. So I want to have multiple screens. I've got like notes or whatever over here. I've typically got what I'm presenting on this screen, and then on my teleprompter, I'm choosing what to broadcast. And so I'm using OBS generally to make a virtual camera or a virtual screen that I share. And that could have my face in it. It could have what I'm showing on the screen, or it could have a combination of those. So I'll just show really quickly here. Like I can show the screen with my face on the side. I can show my face up in the corner. I can get rid of my face. And I have like some keys that allow me to change the position of my face when it's floating. So that's what I'm using when I'm doing like a live presentation. And then another place where I use this is just recording video. So I record a bunch of video, and I want to be able to look into the face of the person who I'm teaching. I don't want to be staring off into kind of nowhere. And you can kind of see that right now, in that right now I am not really looking at your face. If you're watching this video, I'm kind of looking at the screen or whatever, but like the webcam isn't really looking at that. Now I could look over here, and it kind of looks okay with this, but like where my monitor is set up on my laptop, it's not ideal, and like the background just looks kind of weird. And this is what I think a lot of people have. They just use their background from their laptop, which is fine. I'm not saying you have to do any of this. I'm just saying, like for me, I want to make a professional appearance for my courses and whatnot. So let me just show you, if I'm looking at the camera, this is me looking at my teleprompter, and this is what it looks like. So I'm looking right at you, and it feels like I'm not looking off to the side or being weird. I'm trying to look at you, and I think that gives a better impression and makes for a better class. Now let's talk about sort of if you're looking to improve how you deliver content, or if you want to improve your camera appearance. So this is the MacBook camera right here that we've got, and I would say probably the most important thing, like the biggest thing to get the bang for the buck, is to use a light. So let's do that. I've got over here a Godox. So that was me without the light. Here's me with this light. And you can see just that alone, if you just do one thing, I would say for most people, if you get a light, that's going to improve the quality of what people see on the other end. Okay, so light is probably the first thing I'd recommend. So this is a Godox. This is the ULC60BI. So the cool thing about this is like I can set how bright this is. I can make it brighter. So here I'm a little bit brighter. I don't know if you can tell that, but it's gives a good shadow on my face, but also, you know, if I'm using this for a long time, it kind of hurts my eyes. So I like to keep that turned down a little bit. I can also adjust the temperature of this, so you can see that it's like at 5,700 Kelvin right now. And so I'm okay with that temperature. And I'll leave that there. Okay, so light, that would probably be the first thing that I recommend. Also, you can see that I have a big window here, so that is giving some light as well. And if we look up above, we can see that I've got lights up above here. And you'll notice that this one up here is not on, and that's because if it's on, it actually hits my teleprompter screen and reflects back into my face, and so that's kind of annoying. So I turn that one off. The other ones are on, and people say that gives like a highlight effect. I'm not a video expert or anything. I've been in a lot of studios, but this is, I would say, like a very cost-effective but simple bang for your buck effect. Okay, so this is just adding a webcam, normal webcam with lights. I would say if you want to go the teleprompter route, you're going to want to get a teleprompter. You need to put a camera in there. And I'm really happy with the Insta360 camera. This is what it's looking like with the light on. Let me turn it off, and so you can just see what that difference is. This is what it looks like with the light off. So you can see that the light actually makes a really big difference here. And again, if I was going to recommend one thing, it would probably be a light. Now, let me turn it back on. And again, for me, it's important that I be looking at the camera because I want my students to have that experience that I'm paying attention to them, I'm an attentive teacher. And similarly, if I'm talking with a client on the phone or whatnot, I really prefer to be looking at them. So I'll have my teleprompter, half the screen will be Zoom, the other half will be like Emacs, where I'll take notes for that. So that is the Insta360 Link camera in there. So let's open up the application here. So here's the application. You can see it on my screen, and as I'm like doing this, you can see that like because I'm looking at my screen down here now, I'm not looking up here, right? And so what I would prefer would be actually to be looking at this screen here, and I can do that. I can make this a little bit bigger. One of my problems is that now that I'm old, it's kind of this screen actually, it's an 8-inch screen. I would appreciate it if it was a little bit bigger so I could see it a little bit better. But I do have reading glasses I'm not wearing, so I could use those. But you can see that there's a bunch of effects here. And let me just move my face, or actually I'll just get rid of my face altogether. And you can see that there's like we can change the background. This has the bokeh effect applied, but like if I get rid of that, you can see that it's not on there. So I actually leave that off. I don't use that. I think this looks pretty good. It's just, I think there's a little bit more of a latency when I use that. It's got some makeup effects. Not really my thing. It's got some other filters here. So I don't use those either. So again, I'm just sort of using this out of the box as is. And I'm pretty happy about the quality of it. I've used Canon cameras, I've used Sony cameras. In short, Sony's work really good. Quality is great. You just have to have a little bit more setup. So you're gonna have an HDMI out from the camera, then you have to convert that to an image, and so you can get a little adapter card. I've got one in my bundle of cables back here. And then you're also gonna need a power supply for your camera. Then you need to turn on your camera, so you gotta reach back and turn it on. And then you might need to, when you turn it on, the lens might pop out depending on what lens you have, or if you have a lens that doesn't pop out. And so with the teleprompter, that's kind of a hassle. It works, and I've made it work. I've done that with both Canon and Sony. Canon is a little bit more of a pain than Sony in that at least the cameras I was using didn't have HDMI out, so I had to use their app, which was just kind of annoying. And then when I changed back to Mac, their app really didn't work with Macs at all. So I had a Sony. If I was setting this up for myself, I would really look into the Insta camera. It's got a 4K image, and it's really good quality. So again, it's not quite as nice as the Sony, but like the setup is a lot easier. I don't have to mess around with things. And then the cost is a lot less, right? My Sony camera, I think I bought it used, and it was like 6 years old, and it was like $500 or so used. And you can get these Instas for a lot cheaper, and they're just easier to use here. So that is an overview of my teleprompter. Again, I'm not necessarily using this for reading things. I could put something up there and read stuff, but I generally don't do that. My main goal here is I want this to look nice, and I repeatedly get compliments and people commenting on like how this looks. And that's why they ask me like what's going on behind there. So hopefully that gives you some insight into what's going on with my teleprompter, and then the software that I'm using behind the scenes and how I'm using my teleprompter. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them. I'll try and put links to the equipment that I have, so if you're interested in that equipment, you can get that and set up your own system as well. Have a great day. Bye.